Long before oil reshaped its destiny, Venezuela was a quiet and distant land, far from the centers of global power. Its people lived close to the earth. The economy depended on agriculture. Coffee grown on misty hillsides, cacao harvested under dense tropical canopies, cattle grazing across wide plains. Life moved slowly. Progress came in small steps. Politics, however, were rarely calm. The country was shaped by strong men, military leaders, and cycles of civil conflict. Governments rose and fell, often violently. Yet despite the instability, Venezuela remained largely ignored by the industrial world. It was not a place empires fought over. Not yet. Ironically, the source of its future had always been there. Across the countryside, dark liquid seeped naturally from the ground. Indigenous communities knew it well. They called it mene. They used it to seal boats, to heal wounds, to light fires, and to honor spiritual rituals. To them, it was a practical gift of nature, valuable but limited. They could not have known that this black substance would one day reshape borders, attract empires, and define the fate of an entire nation. To the modern world, it would become everything. In 1914, in western Venezuela, a drilling site known as Zumaque 1 struck oil. At first, the discovery caused little excitement. The world was distracted. Empires were at war. Oil was important, but Venezuela was still a footnote. Then, in 1922, the earth itself seemed to announce Venezuela's arrival. At the Barroso No. 2 well, pressure built beyond control. Suddenly, oil exploded from the ground, blasting hundreds of feet into the air. For days, black crude poured uncontrollably into the sky, raining back down over workers, equipment, and land. Photographs traveled across oceans. Newspapers spread the story. Venezuela was no longer invisible. Foreign oil companies rushed in, American, British, and Dutch giants with capital, technology, and ambition. Names like Standard Oil and Royal Dutch Shell secured vast concessions. Oil fields expanded rapidly, transforming quiet countryside into industrial zones. By the 1930s, Venezuela had become one of the world's largest oil exporters. The transformation was astonishing. Cities grew almost overnight. Roads cut through jungles and mountains. Electricity reached places that had once known only candlelight. Modern Venezuela was being built, barrel by barrel. But prosperity came with a dangerous imbalance. Oil revenues flooded government coffers, while agriculture and manufacturing slowly withered. Why grow food when oil could pay for imports? Why build factories when crude exports covered every expense? The country became rich, but narrowly rich. The United States benefited enormously. Tankers loaded with Venezuelan crude sailed north, feeding American refineries designed specifically for heavy oil. U.S. companies controlled technology, pricing, and expertise. Venezuela earned royalties, taxes, and prestige, but decision-making power remained largely foreign. By mid-century, a quiet question began to echo among intellectuals, workers, and politicians alike.
The moment hangs heavy.
If the oil is ours, why isn't the future fully ours too? That question led to action. In 1960, Venezuela joined Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and Kuwait to form OPEC.
It was more than an organization, it was a declaration. Oil-producing nations would no longer accept whatever price the world offered. They would speak with one voice. Then, in 1976, Venezuela made its boldest move yet. The oil industry was nationalized. Foreign assets were absorbed into a new state-owned company, PDVSA. It was meant to be professional, independent, and world-class, a symbol of sovereignty over black gold. At first it worked. Oil prices soared during the 1970s. Money poured in. Venezuela became known as Saudi Venezuela. The national currency strengthened. Venezuelans traveled the world, studied abroad, and believed the future had finally been secured. But beneath the celebration, a flaw quietly deepened. The country was spending oil money faster than it was building resilience. When oil prices collapsed in the 1980s, Venezuela's illusion of stability shattered. Debt soared, inflation spiraled, public services deteriorated. What oil had built in years unraveled in months. In 1989, fuel price increases triggered massive protests known as El Caracazo. Streets burned, soldiers fired, hundreds died. Oil had failed to protect the people when prices fell. The United States, now more diversified and less dependent on Venezuelan oil, watched from a distance. Venezuela was no longer a model of success. It had become a warning. Out of this chaos emerged a former soldier with a fiery voice and a promise to rewrite the nation's destiny. In 1999, Hugo Chávez came to power, pledging to fight inequality, corruption, and foreign dominance. Oil was his weapon. He redirected oil revenues into social programs, healthcare for the poor, education for the forgotten, housing for those who had none. For millions, life genuinely improved. Chávez became a hero to supporters and a symbol of resistance to U.S. influence. But power concentrated. PDVSA lost its independence. After a 2002 strike, experienced engineers and managers were dismissed. Oil revenue became a political tool rather than a long-term investment. Relations with the United States deteriorated sharply. Chávez openly challenged U.S. foreign policy. Washington viewed Venezuela as increasingly authoritarian and unpredictable. Oil still flowed, but the system beneath it was weakening. After Chávez's death, Nicolás Maduro inherited power, but not Chávez's charisma, nor the high oil prices that had sustained the system. Mismanagement deepened, corruption spread, investment vanished, oil production collapsed. U.S. sanctions further restricted Venezuela's ability to sell oil and access global finance. The paradox became tragic. Venezuela possessed the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, yet gasoline shortages crippled daily life, blackouts darkened cities, hyperinflation erased savings, millions fled the country in one of the largest migrations in modern history. Oil, once a blessing, had become a battlefield. Today, Venezuela remains oil-rich, but fragile. Most of its oil is heavy crude, expensive to extract and refine. Infrastructure is decayed. Production remains far below potential.
The United States no longer needs Venezuelan oil, but it still cares, because oil is power. A revived Venezuelan oil industry could influence global prices, reshape alliances, and alter geopolitical balances. American companies possess expertise Venezuela lacks. Venezuela holds resources the world still desires. The relationship is no longer about dependence. It is about leverage.
Venezuela's story is not simply about oil. It is about what happens when wealth replaces wisdom. Oil built roads but weakened institutions. Oil funded dreams but discouraged diversification. Oil attracted global powers but left the nation vulnerable to them. The United States adapted, diversified, and moved on. Venezuela bet everything on one resource and paid the price. The oil is still there. The question is whether the future can be built on more than what lies beneath the ground.